Monitor's Mic, where we talk oversight, policing, and you. I'm Stella Cement, your host and the Independent Police Monitor for the City of New Orleans. And unfortunately, Chriselle Williams, our Deputy Police Monitor, is not with us today. This show is your go-to source for discussing policing, law enforcement oversight, and how it all impacts you. From the Office of the Independent Police Monitor, we offer an independent perspective on city government. The Office of the Independent Police Monitor, OIPM, serves as a crucial civilian oversight body for the New Orleans Police Department, the NOPD. We ensure transparency and accountability within the police department by making sure that NOPD follows their policies, abides by the consent decree and the sustainment strategy, and is compliant with all local, state, and federal laws. We, your hosts, are not police officers, but we are experienced attorneys from the criminal legal field dedicated to transparency and accountability. Our office operates independently from the NOPD and from the federal monitors. What do we do day to day? We take complaints of officer misconduct from the public and from police officers. We review misconduct investigations conducted by the NOPD's Internal Affairs, which is called the Public Integrity Bureau, and we will be discussing that a lot today. We're on call 24 hours a day, every day of the year, for officer-involved shootings and critical incidents, and we'll go to the scene and monitor the force investigation from start to finish. We're advisory members of the Use of Force Review Board and the disciplinary hearings. We run the Community Police Mediation Program, and we engage the community to ensure your voices, opinions, and concerns are heard. This summer, the OIPM launched a 24-hour hotline for complaints of officer misconduct or accounts of positive policing. It's operational every day of the year. The hotline is available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. No matter how you reach the hotline, you have the option to file anonymously through that platform, and you will be given a unique tracking number. You can reach the hotline through calling or texting 1-877-225-OIPM. That's 1-877-225-OIPM, which is 6476. For our show today, we encourage you to call in with your questions, comments, and concerns. You can reach us on air at 504-582-9422. While we may not be able to address individual cases, we are committed to following up with you. So with that, let's learn more about today's guests, which means I get to talk more. So first, we are joined by two guests from the Public Integrity Bureau of NOPD, and I'm very excited about this show. Let's start with Deputy Superintendent of the Public Integrity Bureau, Keith Sanchez. And during this show, we'll be calling him Chief Sanchez. Chief Sanchez is an accomplished attorney and law enforcement leader with more than 30 years of combined experience in policing, law, and public oversight. He currently serves as the Deputy Superintendent of NOPD's Internal Affairs, which is called the Public Integrity Bureau. He oversees internal investigations and safeguards departmental integrity. Chief Sanchez is a graduate of Loyola University, New Orleans. He has a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, and he has a JD in law. He also studies international and comparative law in Austria, Hungary, and Italy. His career includes service as an Atlanta police officer, boo, and a assistant district attorney in Orleans.
So it begins. Wow.
He has experience as a criminal defense attorney and in the U.S. Army National Guard. He is a veteran of Operation Desert Storm. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Since rejoining NOPD in 1997, Chief Sanchez has advanced through leadership roles, including constitutional law training and oversight of professional standards. In his current role, he promotes transparency, accountability, and public trust. Beyond his official duties, he contributed to community programs such as Catholic Charities Supervised Visitation Program, and has been recognized nationally for his work in the Department of Justice. And now we're going to go on to our second guest, Captain Wayne DeLarge. Captain DeLarge oversees the Public Integrity Bureau as the captain within that department. He's a 22-year veteran of NOPD. Actually, no, more? No, 22.
22.
Yeah, 22 years. Captain DeLarge started his career in the 6th District. Most of his service has been in investigations, specifically the Homicide Division, where he spent many years before being promoted to sergeant. Upon earning his lieutenant bars in 2018, he was assigned to the Field Operations Division. He later returned to homicide as the commander of that division. Captain DeLarge has also been assigned the assistant commander position of the 5th and 7th districts. Since becoming a captain, he led the 3rd district in Gentilly Lakeview area, and after that, the 7th district in New Orleans East. So, Captain DeLarge, you have a lot of field operation experience in almost every district in this city. Captain DeLarge graduated from St. Aug High School and received a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Xavier University of Louisiana. And if you recognize the name, his brother is,
That's totally not in my resume.
yeah, I'm just adding
I'm
in.
messing with-
I'm
yeah,
just
I'm
adding
messing with
in
you.
that he has a brother in high places. He is
That's
a
right.
judge for criminal district court.
Criminal
So,
District Court of Orleans Parish, Section K. That's correct.
yeah, well, just underachievers, right?
We're just trying to make
It's
it.
pretty nice, man. Brother, yes, yes.
So, with that, let's get started. Can you please explain to us what is the Public Integrity Bureau and what type of allegations does it handle?
So, Stella, look, before we go there, I just want to mention to you that I hear you booed Atlanta Police Department, but I think it's important to note that I'm a true New Orleanian through and through, and that I applied for NOPD first, and there was a hiring freeze. So, of course, you had to move on from there and take care of your family. So that's how I wound up there, and lo and behold, came back in '97, right? The Public Integrity Bureau is a bureau within the New Orleans Police Department that investigate officer misconduct. That's our responsibility to facilitate the investigations, but not only just misconduct, but also to policy violations, right? Because policy violations can be different than misconduct, right? Can be different than misconduct. And so when you look at it in its totality, that is what the Public Integrity Bureau does. We investigate all kind of different allegations, policy violations, misconduct. Yes, if it is a crime that's alleged by the officers, then yes, we will investigate the officers for the criminal act. Important to note that if it is a crime of some type of specificity, like maybe domestic violence, we're going to allow that unit to do the criminal investigation, but the Public Integrity Bureau will still be responsible for doing the actual administrative investigation on those particular cases.
So what I'm hearing is you can investigate crimes and you can investigate violations of policy within the NOPD.
That is correct, yes.
So are you investigating only officers?
No, we investigate officers and professional staff as well. Any NOPD member can be investigated for a particular violation of policy or law for that matter.
So the Public Integrity Bureau can't be everywhere. You can't be seeing everything. So how do you know what to investigate? Where do the allegations of wrongdoing come from?
So they come from the public, or they can come in from internally, right? And so the process is that then there are numerous different ways a complaint can be filed, right? It can be done online. They can go to a district station, follow with the supervisor. They can go through call us and go through to the IPM's office, right? And we get complaints, and once a complaint comes in, it goes to our intake division. Once intake gets it, they look at the complaint, they make contact with the complainant, they classify the complaint. Now, determining upon how the complaint is classified, whether it's going to be an administrative case or a criminal case, that case it goes to that respective unit and is assigned to an investigator.
So do officers actually file complaints on other officers?
It has happened before, yeah. And so the different type of complaints that can be filed is either a public generated complaint, which means it came from the public, or internal. We also have officers that file complaints on other officers, but we also have supervisors that may observe violations that will file complaints as well.
When a supervisor files a complaint or initiates, and I want to use the term of art, we often say like cut a number.
Yeah.
Does it have to be based on something that an officer did internally to someone within the agency, or can it be based on something they observe an officer do out in the public?
It can be based on something the officer did out in the public. It doesn't have to be something internal, right? And we get that all the time. You know, one of the responsibilities of the supervisors out there in the district is that they spend time watching body camera footage, and in observing that footage, if they see a policy violation, then they have an obligation based off of that to cut a number, if you will, initiate a complaint.
So if I get pulled over by, and I'll just name him in the room, by Captain DeLarge.
It's going to be miraculous, but go ahead.
Yes.
Let's do that.
All right, so I get pulled over, and Captain DeLarge is really unprofessional with me and pulls me over in a way that I believe is illegal. But I just don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be on the grid. I don't want to have to call the Public Integrity Bureau, and I don't know who the Office of the Independent Police Monitor is, so I let it go, and I move on with my life. You're telling me that somewhere Captain DeLarge's supervisor might be reviewing his body cam
That's correct.
and might cut a number on him?
So that's correct, because within the New Orleans Police Department and within our policies, supervisors and platoon managers are required to review a certain amount of traffic stops at random, a certain amount of arrests, and that's one of the catch-alls. That's one of the ways we stay the course as far as constitutional policing through that requirement. So there is a supervisor that will review that traffic stop in its entirety to ensure that the officer was within policy, procedure, the laws of the state of Louisiana, the municipal ordinances of New Orleans, and more importantly and impactful, the Constitution of the United States, right? So it's not just that BWC, it's that in-car camera, it's, we've had investigations that have led to outside cameras as well, such as real-time crime cameras or independent surveillance cameras. Something as minor as a traffic stop, as you explained, can certainly expand into something bigger. And then, of course, if it expands to something bigger, was it systemic? Is this isolated, or was it systemic? Because our goal is to course correct.
Yeah, what do you mean by systemic? Can you give me?
Certainly, I mean, is Ms. Stella Cement the only individual that this officer, not me, even though you use me as an example, has done an unconstitutional stop with, or an incorrect or unprofessional stop with? The goal is to, like we were saying, not I got you, but course correct, right? So we can better serve the public. That's the whole goal of PIB. And when I say to better serve the public in the community, I'm talking about our officers and the citizens that we serve.
Interesting. It's well to know that there could be a whole world of accountability happening behind an interaction that I've had with the police that I didn't even know there were all those follow-up steps. Do I get notified if I didn't, would I know?
Whoa. Not unless you wanted to know, not unless you wanted to participate. I mean, because from our perspective, that would be a rank, or what's referred to as a rank-initiated complaint. And that simply means that a supervisor initiated that complaint process, if you will.
Okay, so I want to say to anyone who's listening, who's been on the NOPD's open source data sites, whenever you're seeing a number that has an R after it, that means rank initiated.
Correct.
So what we're talking about is, though it's rank initiated, it might have to do with a public interaction.
Correct.
And that might help with understanding why also so many rank initiated complaints might be sustained at the end of the year, because often officers know what is expected behavior when they're initiating
Correct.
a misconduct investigation.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting.
Correct.
to
But
hear.
it's important to know that we do audit ourselves. And those audits are reviewed independently as well. So we're constantly being audited.
Yes, that is good to hear. Now, what about discipline? Does the Public Integrity Bureau decide officer discipline?
So that's the interesting question, right? we are the facilitators of the investigations, and we make a recommendation to the department as it relates to discipline, right? The only body on this department that has the ability and the authority to discipline would be the superintendent, right? But that's not our role. Our role is to do the investigation, to facilitate the investigation, and just make a recommendation. And once we make the recommendation, it goes back to the department for some type of hearing at whatever level it's going to be at or whatever. And at that hearing, the officer has an opportunity to come in, he or her has the opportunity to come in to kind of tell their side of the story or give their case or whatever, present their case. You know, one of the things was very important to me when I first came to the Public Integrity Bureau was I wanted the officers and the public to understand that it's just the first part of the process, right? There is another part of it, and that other part is that just because a recommendation has been made doesn't necessarily mean that that's the outcome of the case. And we've had some cases that, and I've sat on some panels where the officers came in and they presented their case, and that disposition was changed based off of the case. It's like it was a hearing, a trial, you know. But with that being said, the board makes a recommendation as it relates to whether or not the disposition of the case, but also as the discipline as well. But ultimately, it's going to be the superintendent who's going to make that final determination of what the discipline will be.
So the superintendent is the final decider.
Yes.
Discipline.
Yes.
What about unauthorized uses of force? Does the Public Integrity Bureau decide if the force that an officer uses is outside of policy, practice, and training? Is that y'all's call?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, within the Public Integrity Bureau is the Force Investigation Team, commonly referred to as FIT, and they review all uses of forces. They're responsible for the review of all uses of forces, even though they may not initially investigate them all. And of course, force is classified in multiple levels, level 1 to level 4. And level 4 are, of course, serious uses of forces where perhaps lethal force or someone was seriously injured in some other variables, right, may have been involved. So FIT does examine and analyze those to see if they're within policy, training, and tactics. We also, those are also reviewed by the federal monitors as well as the OIPM, and of course the training academy. One thing that we're constantly doing in all of our investigations is looking at ourselves, looking at our policies, looking at our training, looking at supervision, and deciding the appropriate discipline or course correction. The whole goal is to get better.
And look, and to add to what Captain DeLarge just said, in addition to the FIT team, there's also a use of force review board, right? And so that board is very, very important, right? Because what comes in front of that board is all level 4 uses of force, which is serious uses of force, discharge a weapon or a handcuffed subject that may have been struck by the officer, whatever it may be. But those boards come together, and in most cases, while FIT does the investigation as it relates to whether or not as a recommended disposition, that board kind of determines whether or not that force was within policy or not, you know. And that board is not just PIB. It's the entire department. And so it's chaired by the Field Operations Bureau chief. And then there's the Public Integrity Bureau chief is another voting member. And in most cases, it's going to be Investigative Service Bureau bureau chief. And we've actually had some hearings that lasted for hours, just depending on the nature of the case itself. And as a part of that conversation, that discussion about the force, all parties have an interest in that, right? You'd have the training academy that's present. You have experts in use of force that's present. You have the IPM's office that's present. You have the federal monitors that's present. And it's a healthy discussion, or as they like to say, a robust discussion about that particular force. You know, I'm sure, and you're very familiar with it, you know. And so it's important because, you know, when you look at certain things you may see on TV, certain situations that may come up, I don't think those things, and I'm talking about different cities where you may have issues as it relates to force, right? and some of the glaring things that you may see. Those things don't happen in a vacuum, right? And so if you think about it in its totality, there was some precursors or things that were done prior to that before it gets to that point, right? I think our system is so layered that in most cases you won't see that, right? Because we have these different situations, different processes in place that you won't see it. But I think the use of force reward is a very, very important component because it's just not decided by NOPD. There are different stakeholders that kind of give information on what the thoughts are as it relates to that particular use of force.
Yeah, and I just want to add that that the investigator who made the recommendation of whether the force was inside or outside of policy training and practice does a full presentation, and during that presentation, everyone on the board will review body cam, they'll watch in-car camera footage. Sometimes there's drone footage. And sometimes these investigators are very creative. Like we've seen reenactments where they've literally brought in like a milk crate where there was an issue with somebody sitting on a milk crate and sitting so far away from an officer. And they reenacted the distance and the milk crate like was brought in with somebody sitting there. We've seen full models get constructed of spaces, so that way we'd be able to see how the officer utilized that space. And we talk about everything from tactics to safety of pedestrians and bystanders to just even if we determine that the force, and by we, I mean the board, even if the board determines that the force was within policy, practice, and training, there might still be larger questions about was this still the right way to do it? Right. Or the best way to do it to ensure officer and public safety. So, these are very interesting, robust, and sometimes long debates that are happening.
And one thing I want to mention about that, Stella, because you brought up a good point. It's not only about the force that's used, right? There may be some other issues that maybe have led to the force
Right.
that we identify that potentially are issues outside the force itself.
Yeah,
And
like
so,
should one officer walk into that space alone moving forward, or should we, or should they have waited for support? Or did a supervisor make a call that a supervisor shouldn't have made?
right.
You're right. There's a lot of big all around questions that we're considering too. I'm impressed with this, but also I want to point out now. Now we go. What I haven't heard yet is the role of the community.
Yeah.
What do you think the role of the community should be in the Public Integrity Bureau? Where does the community fit in officer accountability?
So that's a very good question, right? I think first of all, one of the most important key components of any police department is the accountability piece, right? There has to be accountability as it relates to officers' actions, transparency, and things of that nature, right? And so I think the community that's should have a significant impact or say in what goes on within the Public Integrity Bureau, right? But it has to be done in such a way where it's a meaningful discussion, meaningful route as it relates to what's going on there. Because sometimes it's more of a situation where just communication. Because sometimes it's a lack of communication where the community may not understand what the process is that's going on. But no, the community plays a very important, vital role.
And just to add to that, in it's my opinion, every community member is an accountability manager, if you will, because they are our eyes and ears. You said earlier, you mentioned that we cannot be everywhere all the time, right? Just as simple as they dial 911, they can call PIB or memorialize an incident with their cell phone. They are our eyes and ears. I mean, they are accountability managers. I had several when I served in New Orleans East. When something was out of line, I didn't know about it, and we can't fix problems that we don't know about. So we asked them to tell us about it so we can fix them.
I like that. I like that idea.
Okay.
No,
Now I'm
no.
messing with you.
Yeah,
I'm-
that we're all
I-
accountability managers. I do
That-
want every member of the public
They-
to walk around feeling that way.
They are. They are. I mean, it is.
So, what do you wish the public knew about the Public Integrity Bureau?
Hmm.
Is there something that you think that the community is getting wrong or that we're misunderstanding about this role? Is there something that you wish that if you could create a PSA that aired every hour on television, what would it say?
That's a very good question. So I think one of the things that I think it's very important is there's this idea or thought when things are not doesn't go a certain way that it's just corruption. Like we create this environment and it's corruption and we're covering up the potential acts or whatever, and it's just simply not the case. There are too many things that go on within the Public Integrity Bureau, and I can tell you, currently we have some really good investigators in place, and it's just not that type of situation, right? And so, and there are too many checks and balances in place, for those things to happen. And those checks and balances, again, it goes beyond just the Public Integrity Bureau. As I stated before, we are the facilitators of the investigation. At a certain point, it has to go beyond us to other parts of the department. But also, too, there's this wonderful body in place called the Office of the Independent Police Monitor. That is
You'll get everywhere with that type of.
that is present, right? And so, transparency is one of the things that we believe in, and when a major incident comes out, we make the phone calls. Commanders makes the phone call, and you guys are right there, step in step with the Public Integrity Bureau during these investigations. So there are a lot of checks and balances, but number one thing is that we're trying to do these investigations and conduct this investigation in a fair and impartial manner for all parties.
Correct. And one of the tougher things to say or to talk about is that the customer is not always right.
Ooh, that is a hard message to receive.
It is. When we are wrong, we will own it, we will admit it, and we will look at ourselves and fix it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But when we are right, PIB has a duty, right, to promote credibility and legitimacy and confidence in the community as a whole, and that includes the police officers, because PIB impacts morale, are one of the impacting factors of morale. So when the customer is not right, there's a bit of dissension, if you will,
Yeah. There is.
and unfortunately, that's the case sometimes.
That is the case sometimes. I will say that I think this requires a trust in the process, though, and sometimes that trust isn't there.
You're right. You're
And
absolutely
and
correct.
That's the hard part of that, and and I want to get into that, but I really want to ask the question that I'm amazed no one has called in to ask yet, which is the question we get asked all the time: why should the police investigate the police? Why should we trust a process that is about holding cops accountable by asking other cops to tell us if what they did was right or wrong?
So you saved the most anticipated and difficult question for the commissioned member in this room.
Yeah. I'm looking only at you, Captain DeLarge. You must answer that question.
Right. So I thought about that question a lot, right? It is important. Well, first of all, it's a duty, and we owe that to the public, right? But we are the individuals, I guess, if you want to make this analogy to a game, we're the individuals playing the game, and we know the rules, right? And members of the public who, even though our policy and our procedures are published, right, they may not know all the rules, all the nuances, and everything within the New Orleans Police Department, right? So it's important that we, right, investigate ourselves just as much as we audit ourselves, right? To build that trust that you spoke about a moment ago, that's not always there, to build that credibility, to build that legitimacy, and more importantly, that experience. We are the ones that may have been in that same position. Would we have done the same thing, right? And sometimes, no, we would have did it different, right? And that's when we, we still analyze policy, tactics, training, and all of that. Um, but yeah, that's it.
I want to quickly jump in with just a memory I have of going to a disciplinary hearing where the officer who was the accused officer, the one accused of mishandling, it was a car that was pulled over and he searched the car. And the issue was, did he violate the Fourth Amendment? Did he conduct a search that he shouldn't have conducted under policy and under law? And the cop kept saying, I don't get why I'm here. The judge already heard this question and didn't suppress the evidence. The evidence is allowed in. So why are you sitting up here and now reviewing the same search and saying what I did was wrong? And I remember the captain of the Public Integrity Bureau at the time said, that's because sometimes even judges are deferential to the police. And sometimes they don't even, they misread the law, and sometimes they don't know our policies. And we're telling you that we know what a cop is supposed to do, and we know how we trained you to handle those searches, and we know you didn't do what we needed you to do. And we have a high expectation of you respecting constitutional rights, and you didn't respect them. And I don't know if it was a show for me or not, but I'll say that I was impressed. I was impressed. I was like, okay, I like to hear it. And I do think it's true. There is some discretion that I think is given, like they're very deferential in courtrooms maybe or in other spaces towards police. And I think sometimes you have to go into a space with other police officers so that way you can't just hear, well, you don't know what it's like or you've never done it.
Right.
And so there is an amount of credibility of hearing the critique come from a fellow officer. But then I have to ask, aren't you just Monday morning quarterbacking? Are you doing something that needs to be done when you do this? For you to just be standing back and say after the fact, after the emergency's over, after the threat is gone, to say, this is what you should have done. Isn't that just Monday morning quarterbacking?
No, I think that just speaking in terms of what Captain DeLarge was talking about, when you've done the job of policing the police, right? It's not Monday morning quarterbacking. You've been there, you've done that before, right? And so you have the experience and know what should be and what shouldn't be done, But in that same vein, no, I mean it's our responsibility as the leaders of the department, right? To take a look at actions and see if the actions were within a certain policy or whatever. Those policies were put in place for a particular reason, and the reality is when we talk about, what happens in court and what happens in our hearings, the policies that were constructed in such a way that the officer held to a higher standard than what happens in court, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what we actually are reviewing. Whether or not those standards were met, regardless of what happens in court. Because the reality is that if we establish, if you abide by the policies, then court should be a non-issue, right? Because all those bases are covered, And so I don't think it's Monday morning quarterback, and I think it's us as leadership of the department as a whole doing our job to review and see, hey, look, what are these things within our policy?
And I got to ask, I mean, I watch football enough. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with Monday morning quarterbacking? What's wrong? Shouldn't we go back and watch the tapes? Shouldn't we learn from our mistakes? And shouldn't we do it in an environment where we're no longer heated and we're no longer elevated and the threat is gone? Is the time to receive critiques or to hear, hey, try this tactic, not that one, in the middle of the threat? Or are you going to hear that information better afterwards. You know, there's a lot of value to being critiqued by your peers.
Certainly. Certainly. You're absolutely correct. I don't know a football team that doesn't review the film from the Sunday game, whether they won or lost, right? And we certainly do it whether we win or lose. I mean, we do it through internal affairs and also, like I said, those stop, search, and arrest audits. It's constant.
So is it hard? Is it hard to sit there in judgment of fellow officers that you might have gone through academy with, or you might have started your career with? You know, people that you have now become possibly friends with. Is that hard?
Yeah, it certainly can be difficult. However, let me say this, and I always say this. I'm not built for jail. Too cuddly. I'm not going, right? So I am going to follow the law, and of course that's my expectation. And I have had an experience where I did have to arrest someone who I worked with, and you know, for homicide when I was in homicide, and you know that was the law, and he was wrong, and he knew better from the training, and it was just unacceptable, and he went to jail, and it is what it is. The purpose of our bureau is to look. We don't have that bias, all right, or remove that bias, if we will, and look at it from an open lens or perspective, if you will.
So now I want to move towards a argument that I've heard from officers who are receiving discipline. And the critique was that the officers that are inside of the Public Integrity Bureau get too removed from the rest of the agency, and they forget what it's like to be out there, to be working the beat every day, to be engaging with people every single day, and the pressure that might be on them, and that Internal Affairs, the Public Integrity Bureau, has unrealistic expectations. Do you think there's any truth to that argument?
No, I don't. I mean, the unrealistic expectation means we're asking you to follow the policy, right? And that's essentially it. I think Captain Lodge mentioned earlier, we are not this I got you bureau, right? If things are brought to us, we have to take a look at it in its totality. If you look at the Public Integrity Bureau currently as we have it now, right, I don't think you have a lot of people there, maybe one or two that's been there for years. I think there's been a total overhaul of the Public Integrity Bureau. And so I think that old mindset and that philosophy, I don't think it exists anymore. But I also believe that, you know, the investigations that are conducted are fair investigations. And I think that's kind of the key to it, in fair investigations. If there's a decision that's made, and Captain Lodge hit on it earlier, like it's nothing personal. It is just about the job. And, you know, I've, as a deputy chief, I mean, I've go a lot of different places, right? And so I don't have any issue with going places, seeing people, speaking to people, because whatever decision that has to be made at that time, it is about what's on this paper and what happened, right? There's nothing against the person individually, you know? And so I just, you know, I don't see that as an issue within the Bureau at this point. It's funny you would mention that, because one of the things was when we first got here, and meeting with the police unions and having those conversations, because most of the time they kind of have the heartbeat of the department.
They
you know?
do. The police associations often, you know, get to hear a very candid perspective from
Yeah.
other officers.
Yeah, and so, and just having conversation with some of the leadership of those agencies, it's just not what we're hearing at this moment. Now, at one point it was,
It was, yes.
but not anymore.
Just to echo what Chief Sanchez said, I haven't been in PIB very long, but to be stopped by an officer who was under investigation, and to for that officer to stop what he's doing, shake my hand, and say, "Thank you for being fair." That was it was a great honor, and it's something that I hope to maintain. Not hope, I will maintain. Thank you for being fair. That officer may have not liked being under investigation, but it was a duty and an obligation for us. And that officer may have not liked the outcome, but it was fair. And that's one of the key components to be fair and consistent.
So I would love to go personal for a moment. Have you ever been investigated
Oh, yes.
for allegations of misconduct in policing career? Both of you?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, yes.
What was that like for you? What was that experience like for you?
It's part of the process, right? I mean, if someone thinks that there was a violation that was committed by, by myself, it doesn't really matter, what your rank is. If you believe there's a violation that was committed, then there's an investigation that's done, no one on this department is above being investigated, right? And so you understand it's just a process. And you go through the process, and one of the things that what I would say is that, and even before going through the process, I've always felt that within the police department that there was this, almost hide the ball type mentality when it came to, the Public Integrity Bureau, and I'm like, okay, so if someone's under investigation, why do they not know about it within the first 48 hours? They should, right? I mean, what are we doing here, right? It's just one of the things that we implemented. You need to notify the accused employee that they're under investigation. It shouldn't come from civil service saying you got an extension hearing. It's absolutely ridiculous, But even when I was under investigation, it was the same thing. I appreciated knowing that I was under investigation. So, we understand that it is part of the process, and just let the process work itself out, and then we'll move to that next stage, whatever the determination is.
Right. I don't want anyone to think that I am perfect. I've certainly violated policy, and I received discipline for it, and I fixed it. Right. I mean, minor violations, but still, I had to make those corrections. Those times when I was under investigation and I didn't think I did anything wrong. One time I was exonerated or not sustained, and those are different results that come from investigations. So I found the process to be fair. I was accused of something, and I actually did it, right? But to be candid in this, well, I won't get into the scenario, but I did not do anything wrong. So exonerated, and that's when we look at our policies and say, are our policies in line with actual practice?
Yeah, that's a big question that gets asked sometimes in these investigations.
Correct. And it's a component of the investigation. Are our policies in line with practice? Do we need to analyze or regroup on our policies?
Right. But does officer discipline make officers bitter? Like, what's the point of going out there and doing your job if you're going to be potentially investigated?
Well, hold on. Oh, we want you to do your job the right way. You left that part out. You
So
just
it's
said
not-
doing your job.
Yeah,
We
I
want
said do your job, but not do your job the right way. Good
So
catch. Yes.
exactly,
Good
the
catch.
expectation is to do your job the right way, the right time, all the time. So we're asking for perfection. That's what the public demands. It's what they deserve, right? But we're human. We make mistakes. That's all.
Now, there are stakeholders in the policing and criminal legal space that will say police officers are over disciplined, and we have to just stop this disciplinary machine. And there are stakeholders that will say officers are not disciplined enough. We do not have enough police accountability. You're inside of the system, both of you. What do you think?
I refer to my attorney.
So I don't think officers are over disciplined, right? And I also believe that there's a process in place, right, that allows for these investigations to take place, right? And that's what our responsibility is to facilitate those particular investigations. I think, one of the things that I see is that a lot of times investigations will come from things that's, commonly in the media or on the news, right? Whether or not that particular issue is fair or not, I can't say that. But no, I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? I don't think they're over disciplined, but I also think that they're not officers not getting away with all these things that people say they're getting away with. I think the reality is that you know there have to be processes and policies in place to make sure that the officers are doing their job, but doing it as Captain Delors said, doing it the right way.
Um, at one point, uh, I believe that we were going too far. Minor infractions resulted in full disciplinary investigations at one point, but things have changed, and we have instituted progressive discipline. Right? It doesn't have to be a full blown out disciplinary investigation. It could be a conversation that's documented through a supervisor feedback log, or it can be uh, a minor violation that results in minor discipline. And of course, we have those formal disciplinary investigations for things that have escalated or more egregious and serious, right? And I think that the course that we're on, the direction that we're on right now, that we're fair. At one point, it was rough, but we are fair right now. And that's not just because I'm in PIB. I thought that that was really convenient for me to say that, right? I've been here since May, right? No, but no, we've been on that progressive discipline direction for some time now.
So both of you have gotten to walk into rooms where a lot of officers and certainly the public don't get to go, specifically into the use of force review board meetings or deliberations and disciplinary hearings. You've probably learned a lot of things about being an officer that may not be known or thought about before. Without giving away any particulars, can you tell us about a case or an experience that has stuck with you that has maybe changed your perspective on something?
So, without getting into any particulars about a particular case, I will say that one of the most important components of this is for officers to understand that what PIB does. Those are just notices of recommendations of dispositions, right? It is so important, from my perspective, for the officer to come in to those hearings and be prepared to defend yourself. And I still see it today, but not as much. With officers that, well, whatever y'all gonna do, just go ahead and do it, right?
Yeah, I did.
But there's so much more out there, right? And just in my position, and I've seen it at these hearings, right? There's so much more out there that they could have done to kind of defend themselves, and they just don't, because they think that from the very beginning, that it's going to be obviously sustained or whatever it may have been. But I think of one case in particular where the officers came in there, and I mean the case had been pending for a while now, and for various different reasons, the hearing hadn't been done yet, But they came in there, they presented evidence, they presented witnesses, and all their cases were not sustained. And in fact, I want to say they were even exonerated, right? And so we had an opportunity to kind of let's take a look back on what happened with this particular case. And then within the Public Integrity Bureau, we're able to make some changes about how those investigations were conducted. So it's just the different things like that.
I guess it's important for everyone to understand that just because an allegation is made does not mean that you did something wrong. We are the truth-seeking, fact-finding body, if you will. And even within that, at a recent hearing, I was amazed. This officer's job was on the line. The investigator had to admit that although this is the recommendation of sustained, I don't think that this was malicious, intentional. I don't think this officer meant to do this. and upon review and listening to all the statements, it was subsequently overturned. And I think that is important. That's something that I would not have seen had I not been assigned to PIP.
And I think that's a perspective that is uniquely centered around an officer's experience with this process, though. Both of these are stories about effectively officers not getting disciplined. But have you seen examples of kind of like, is there anything that you've seen from inside these rooms that community members might identify with more?
Let me
Because I think some community members might be listening to this and be like, oh my God,
No.
both of these are examples of
No,
like,
I could give two examples where chiefs, because I'm there observing, right? Chiefs made some tough decisions.
they do.
They made some tough decisions and they terminated. So it happens. It happens when it's called for. Even in one hearing where they're aggravated up to termination. So I've seen both sides of it. I've seen something overturned, and I've seen some. Man, I don't know about that. It's a tough decision,
Right.
and but it's a decision that had to be made when you looked at the totality of circumstances and everything that was at stake.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a very tough room to be in, and I think there's a lot of different things that get discussed in that room. I wish there was a way to share out more about that, so that way more people would understand the process, and maybe that would develop more trust in it. But it is very hard. It's interesting to hear what you've taken from that. Do you have any advice for a member of the community that is considering filing a complaint or thinks they were mistreated by an officer, but they don't maybe trust this process that we're describing?
Yeah, okay. Certainly. I mean, we just circle back to the beginning, right? Circle back. If you don't want to make the complaint with the police department, make it with the Office of the Independent Police Monitor, right? You can make it with the Office of Inspector General. You can make it with the federal government if you don't trust the New Orleans Police Department, right? You could also make it with us and communicate with us and kind of walk through the process. We didn't get to touch on mediation, which I
Right.
think is extremely impactful, and I think the officer and the citizen may get more out of that. It's like you get one thing out of a text message, but having a face-to-face conversation, I think, is more enlightening. And that's another way, like it's kind of on the line, perhaps misconduct, policy violation, but mediation may be the better way to go. But there are all these different ways to file complaints. And you don't have to give your name. You can file a complaint anonymously, right? And it will be examined and investigated. Anything to add, Chief?
Correct. And one of the important things to note is that while the Public Integrity Bureau is a part of the police department as a whole, there should be some comfort in knowing that we're not located in police headquarters, right? We're located in a totally separate area from police headquarters. And that was done intentionally for that very reason. If the public feels like they don't want to go to police headquarters, we're located in a totally separate location, and so it's an inviting environment for the parties to come, but we're there and take the complaint and move forward.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and what the Public Integrity Bureau is like. There are so many questions that I have that I feel we were not able to get to, so we might have to do a part 2 on this.
Absolutely.
That way we can,
Oh,
Absolutely.
perfect.
Yes.
yeah, so
We're
we
going to
can
invite
go-
the co-captain, too, for that.
yeah, we definitely do, because I mean, I wanted to ask like what your critique of us is, but I.
Oh, we're out of time.
Do we
Yeah,
have
out of time.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
honestly, and I wanted to know, like, just what it's like to work with police associations and more about the force investigation team. So we're really going to have to do a second part of this. But thank you so much for coming on the show. You've given us a lot to think about, and I think you've given us a window into the Public Integrity Bureau that hopefully we didn't have before. You let us look behind the curtain, and thank you for doing that and for your candid responses and for doing the work that you do, because I know it's very difficult. There's tough decisions to be made. So that wraps up today's episode of the Monitor's Mic. And again, I want to send a very heartfelt thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in and staying engaged with the crucial conversations we're having about police oversight and community safety. Again, a big thank you to our guests. That was Deputy Superintendent Sanchez and Captain DeLarge for coming on the Monitor's Mic. Before I close, I want to remind everyone about OIPM's 24/7 hotline. And you can reach that hotline via call or text to 1-877-225-OIPM. That's 6476. And the hotline is available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. You can also utilize our website at www.nolaipm.gov in those same languages. As always, if you've missed any part of today's show or want to catch up on past episodes, please visit our website at www.nolaipm.gov. You can follow us and find us on YouTube at NOLA-IPM, on Instagram at NOLA-OIPM, and on Facebook, we're the New Orleans Independent Police Monitor. Until next time, please stay informed, stay involved, and stay committed to building a safer community. This has been the Monitor's Mic.
From the campus of Xavier University, WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with BIN News Now. Local community groups in Dallas held a vigil for the 3 detainees shot during this